Hey everyone, Jits over 50 here. I just wanted to go over a little bit belt rankings, stripes that are very popular today. Years ago, I don't really remember stripes back in 10 plus years ago. I mean, they were just coming around at that time, and I think sometimes you'd give a couple to a white belt. But what I don't like about stripes is it gives somebody a false sense of achievement. I mean, if you went to jiu-jitsu for a couple of months and you get a stripe, I mean, what does that really mean? You just went and trained for a couple of months? I don't think it's something to, you know, I mean, if you get a stripe, great for you, but I wouldn't go and put it on social media every time, especially at white belt, since that's pretty much the easiest rank to achieve, you know, getting a stripe at white belt. Probably everybody who trains has at least gotten that far. So I don't want to put a lot of weight into the stripes. And in the beginning, there wasn't a lot of weight. But I think now with social media and everything, everybody's always saying, oh, what if a 3-stripe white belt goes against a 1-stripe? It's like the difference in skill is so subtle. What are we even talking about? You know, they're just 2 white belts rolling, basically. So, you know, each belt has its own meaning. At white belt, you're brand new, you don't know anything. When you get your blue belt, that just means you can beat most people who are white belts. So you can beat most people that have been training a year to 3 years, basically. That's what I think a blue belt is. A good white belt could beat anybody walking through the door. But a good blue belt can beat all the white belts, no matter how good or talented they might be, in my opinion. Then the next level is, so at blue belt, you basically know jiu-jitsu. At the next level is purple belt, which means that you've learned to counter someone who's proficient in jiu-jitsu. And many times those counters come by using a little bit more speed or using more strength, or being sneaky. Sneaky is the best way, because that means you're starting to understand the technique enough to trick somebody. So that's where I think you should be a purple belt. Maybe you should start, you know, looking at MMA, sparring, things of that nature, maybe fighting MMA if you desire. Most schools I was at, you had to be a purple belt before you could train for MMA, for a fight. The next belt would be brown, and brown belt is like a junior black belt. Purple belt means your teacher thinks one day you'll be a black belt, or at least that's what Faraz Sahabi says. But at brown belt, you are good enough to be more obvious with your technique. It's like the guy knows what you're doing, your partner knows, but they still can't seem to resist. That always impresses me. So brown belt is basically a junior black belt. Purple belt's a long belt. You're gonna be there a few years probably. I was a purple belt for 6 or 7 years. I did switch schools, that doesn't help. But getting your brown belt means that you could be more obvious about things, and that belt shouldn't last that long. I think personally a brown belt should be a 1 or 2 year belt of someone who is training consistently. Then once you get to black belt, it's almost like you can kind of call the move. You know, I'm going to submit Kimura on the left side. You become even more dominant and more chiseled, and you should be able to beat the brown belts. So, you know, every belt level takes so much work, and that's how come we don't get them right away. But personally, I would only be proud of achieving that next belt. Otherwise, you're just measuring inches, and those inches really aren't that important. Either you're the belt or you're not. Either you're a blue belt or you're not. You're a purple belt or you're not. So on and so forth. Also, belt level shows devotion to a school. You could be a blue belt that travels, and maybe you compete and you train at a lot of different schools and no one's promoting you. But that doesn't mean you're not awesome. You know, maybe you'd be a brown belt if you stayed at one school that whole time. So belts also, they don't get diluted by, but they just show devotion. So it shows you've been at the same school. I mean, if you start and finish at the same school, you could be a black belt in 10 years. But most of us switch schools for different reasons. I mean, you move, your work schedule changes, the teacher doesn't like you, whatever it might be. So now, instead of taking 10 years to get your black belt, it could take 15 or 20. I'm at 16 now, because 4 of my years were injured early on. And so that's why we want to stay uninjured and hopefully at the same school, and that will help you move through the ranks faster, as well as study of technique and watching different channels. Jordan does jiu-jitsu, Tyler Spangler, all these different guys. I mean, you can learn, you know, so much from them. Karsa, He's always competing. He's a little crazy. So just keep your head on straight, and one day you'll move through the belts. But don't give yourself so much reward, and don't be so down on yourself if you're not promoted. It's the same in life. Don't get too happy when you win. Don't get too sad when you lose. Try to maintain a level medium emotionally. So that's all I wanted to check in. This is part 2 from this series. I'm going to be doing these around the parks in my neighborhood and show you some of the beauty that does exist in New York, believe it or not, and try to convey some ideas to you guys about things I've been thinking about jiu-jitsu wise. So if you want to help support the channel, there's an ex-martial link in the description. Anything you buy through that link from their channel and you put Jits over 50, you get 15% off, and it helps support my channel. Or you could just buy me a coffee. Either way, thank you for watching. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have a channel. And please like, share, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you.